My name is Prachi. Cherophobia is the fear of or aversion to happiness, and this is the September check-in for my no-buy year. Hi, hello. I thought I was just going to be able to edit my little lip gloss video and upload it, and then I realized that it's October. September is already over and it's time to do all of my monthly wrap-up stuff. So I'm here in the evening in my bathroom because the sun has totally already set there's no more natural lighting to talk about how my September went. Now today, the day I will hopefully be uploading this, October 5th, marks the 8-month anniversary of the start of my no-buy year. However, literally not even 2 weeks ago, I uploaded a video discussing sort of the impact that the no-buy year has had on my mental health, on my identity, on my sense of self, all of that kind of stuff. So I don't want to be redundant, I'm not going to get into any of that stuff over here. If you're interested in that video and somehow haven't caught it yet, I'm going to link it up in the cards for you to check out. What I want to talk about in this September check-in are some of the sort of nitty-gritty beauty and makeup specific related details and revelations I've had around my no-buy year so far. So these include things like my relationship to the cost of makeup, to the amount of makeup I have, to the physical space that makeup kind of occupies, and the way in which my urge to shop has transformed. Actually, no, that's a scam. My urge to shop has not transformed. The way in which I manage or handle my urge to shop has changed. So that's a lot to cover. Do I have any notes or anything to go off of? No, because I was not expecting to shoot a video. So hopefully something coherent will come out of all of this. But without any further ado, let's get it. Now the thing that was really sort of transformative and that I specifically want to discuss in this check-in is the fact that I actually moved during my no-buy year. At the start of August, I moved from the house that I used to live in with my mom and the rest of my family to one bedroom in an apartment in downtown Toronto. And the act of moving was a really eye-opening experience for me because over the course of emptying my entire house into boxes, I came across tons and tons and tons of makeup, skincare, and hair care that I had forgotten I owned. I vividly remember sitting down one day and going through my coat closet, which contains not only all of my coats, but a whole bunch of crates filled with stuff on the floor, as well as every single bag or purse I own. And as I went through all of those bins in that cupboard, all of those crates, as I went through every single purse that I ever owned, emptying them out, I was literally just discovering lip products, blushes, lip balms, hand creams, just everywhere. In one of my purses, I literally found a small pouch containing enough makeup for almost a full face. No complexion products, but lots of lip products, cheek products. And as I was going through each part of my house and finding more and more and more of my makeup and skincare, I began to sort of just feel very disgusted with myself because a lot of the time these were things that I had forgotten I owned. And then I would have to stop and think to myself about when the last time was that I wore it, if I remembered what the experience of even wearing it was like. And a thing that I realized is oftentimes I couldn't remember the experience of wearing the thing, but I could remember the experience of having bought the thing. I could remember the obsessive way I had felt about the object before I bought the thing. I could remember which video, whose recommendation had made me want to try it so bad. I could remember the experience of having actually gone to the shop, swatched it, and then physically bought it or ordered it online or whatever. But I couldn't remember the experience of actually using the thing. And that sort of dawning realization after this had happened multiple times left a really unsettled and just honestly disgusted feeling inside me because I was just kind of shocked and disgusted at my own capacity to buy so much stuff. There's this great documentary, I believe it's on Netflix, it's called The Minimalists or Minimalism, and there's a quote in that movie from a sociologist that they interview, and she said something along the lines of, American culture is simultaneously too materialistic, we care so much about having objects in our life, and not materialistic enough, because we care so little and think so little about the actual materiality and physicality of things. And I watched that documentary like ages ago when it came out, but as I was sitting there surrounded by all of this stuff, all of these like shiny powders and gloopy liquids and their beautiful pristine plastic packaging, I was just really struck by how little I cared about the materiality of those objects, even though I was so obsessed with the act of collecting them at one point in my life. Like, I remembered that intense obsession, that intense desire I had felt that I needed to own this thing, that this was going to be the thing that transformed my life. This particular lip gloss or highlighter or lipstick was going to be the thing that propelled me to the person that I wanted to be. I was so convinced at the time that I bought all of these things that they would do that for me. And yet, literally just a couple months after I bought those things, I clearly misplaced them somewhere in my house and then didn't give a damn. Because that's how little they actually matter to me. That's how little of a difference they actually made in my life. And the way that I felt during that move, the way that I have felt about this excess of products that I have found, it's really informed my behavior in the months of August and September. So you'll have noted, if you've been watching my channel closely, that I've been just sort of slowly going through all of the makeup that I have and sorting all of it to figure out what I think is worth keeping and what I just like don't want anymore in my life. Those videos have been motivated by two things. The first thing is just like pure practicality, because after I found all of this like extra makeup, so to speak, this makeup that had been wandering around outside of my collection, and then I actually tried to put it in my storage, there was no space. But secondly, and more importantly, quite frankly, than even the practicality aspect, all of that like swatching and sorting and trying to figure out what stuff I want to keep with me and bring with me moving forward. The thing that's been motivating that has really been a sense of overwhelm. This sense that I own way too much to actually be able to actively keep alive in my mind. I want to have only as much makeup as I can remember that I have. And for each piece of makeup that I own, I want the capacity to be able to actually talk to somebody about it. Which is to say that if somebody were to ask me, hey Prachi, like what do you think of the like Huda liquid lipsticks, the matte formula? I own one of those. That was one of the lip products I found in like a purse in the back of my closet as I was clearing it out. But even though I own that thing, I've never really used that thing. I can't give you an opinion on it. I don't know if I like that liquid lipstick formula. I can't remember if I like it more or less than a NYX Soft Matte Lip Cream. I could not have a conversation with you or give you my opinion on a piece of makeup that I own. And that is not where I want to be at any point in my life moving forward. And so for me, throughout a lot of August, a lot of September, and I'm going to kind of continue this moving forward to the end of my Nova year and beyond, I've been doing kind of like my own personal shop my stashes. Now here's the thing, filming and editing videos is really time consuming, and so I haven't been filming shop my stashes formally for this channel, but I have been rotating what goes into my everyday makeup bags every 2 weeks or so in order to actually get some use out of all of the different products that I don't really have an opinion on in my makeup collection. Because my hope is that by the end of the Nova year, I'll have a sense of everything that I own. I will be able to give opinions on everything I own, and then I'll be able to know kind of like off the top of my head which formulas and colors are my favorites and which aren't. Because I want this no-buy to be a space of discovery about my own preferences. I don't just want to be listening to like other people on YouTube and what they like anymore. I want when a YouTuber says that they really like one particular lipstick or highlight or whatever, to think to myself, she likes that and that's okay. It doesn't mean that I'm going to like it. Because in fact, I know what I like and I don't think it's that. I discussed this a bit in my April check-in, but I've truly like never been able to do that for myself before, and I feel like now in September, like that's solidified a lot more because I'm forcing myself to actually like really use and reckon with every single thing in my collection. Like I actively try and like rank products against each other. Like, hey, is this highlighter that you use like better than the one that you used last week? Is it better than your favorite highlighter? Like what's going on? And I feel a greater sense of clarity and strength in my own opinions now. I feel more comfortable just being like, yeah, I get that everyone else likes this, but I don't. That's just, it's not for me, and that's okay. And a greater strengthening of my own knowledge of myself has allowed me to be able to watch YouTube with much more impartiality than I could have before. So that's one main point that I want to note that's happened throughout the months of August and September. The other thing that the move really kind of threw into stark relief for me was just how whack my relationship to the cost of makeup is. And here's what I mean by that. As I was going through my move, I was handling all of the clothes that I own. Now, here's the thing to know about me. Clothes aren't included in my no-buy year, and it's in large part because I don't really have a problem buying clothes. For years, I have been like totally fine and willing to drop like $50, $60 on eyeshadow palettes or a luxury blush, but I balk at the idea of spending $30 on a pair of jeans that I would wear every single day. I'm a person who at one point in time considered buying the Natasha Denona gold palette, which would have cost something like $180 once you factored in tax in Canada. And yet I cringe at the thought of having to spend $125 to buy a pair of snowshoes, even though I live in Toronto, Canada, where it actually snows a lot. We have terrible winters, y'all. As I sat down and began to tally up the staple basic clothing items that I need to replace just to kind of like make it, I own no heels because none of them would fit. I own no flats because all of the flats that I owned were either torn or had a hole in them. I own no snowshoes because my one pair is coming apart at the seams. I have precisely 2 shoes that I wear every single day. One, a pair of like fake leather boots, and the other, a pair of Converse, which I bought in 2012 and which are also falling apart at the seams. I own no rain boots, and again, winter is coming and I have no snow boots. And those are just my shoes. Like, don't get me started on my clothing and how much of it is like beginning to wear out. I owned 5 pairs of jeans, and 4 out of those 5 of them had holes in the inner thigh from like chafing, cause your girl's thick, man. She got thick thighs. Ain't no thigh gap over here. And I haven't replaced any of them because I loathe spending more than $20 on a pair of shoes or on a piece of clothing. Like, I feel almost like physical pain when I have to spend more than $20 on these things that I need to survive. And yet, I own a Marc Jacobs blush that was like $50. I own a NARS highlighter that was $50. I really, really want the NARS Sheer Glow foundation, which is like $60. 63, I think, because Sephora's hiked up their prices. Beauty consumerism has so brainwashed me that I genuinely think it's okay to drop $60 on a luxury, on a thing that I absolutely don't need to survive, because I don't need a $50 highlighter to survive. A $50 highlighter isn't gonna protect me from the goddamn snow in Ontario this winter. And as I look at like all of the makeup I own, I'm like, how whack is it? I'm willing to pay like $50 for shimmery powder that wasn't even like hand constructed by a human being. Like, literally a machine pressed that shit into a pan. Granted, there are like human costs to like mining mica and cobalt and all of this kind of stuff, but clothes, like women who look like me in some crazy sweatshop factory in Bangladesh, women who look no different from me at all, South Asian women, are out there physically sewing together the clothes that like I wear on my own back. And yet I don't want to pay like more than $20 for a piece of clothing for their actual physical labor. And I'll totally pay like $25 for a tube of lipstick clamped down by like a machine somewhere. It's just one of those things where it was like, now that I have realized it about myself, I can't like unrealize it. And like, here's the thing, I spent like a really long time like beating myself up for being like a dumbass, but that's not productive. Like, I can't like get that money back. In regards to like where I shop, what kinds of clothes I buy, like my budget is what it is. Like, I'm a broke ass bitch. Like, it's either thrift store or fast fashion. Like, nothing else is in my budget. And granted, like, I don't even shop a lot, which is actually probably the biggest thing anybody could do in terms of like alleviating and lessening the damage. However, the fact that I have always chosen to spend what limited funds I do have by treating myself to like makeup, the money that I have been throwing so casually towards makeup because I think that makeup is somehow like worth it, how is that makeup somehow more worthy or deserving of my money than the actual things I kind of need to survive, like a winter in Ontario, or like job interviews, or anything like that. I have never felt like the clothing that I actually need to like survive and thrive in this world is worth as much as like the frivolous makeup that I've constantly been buying. And so that's been like a very big attitude shift that I've kind of had. This realization that if I am taking any like extra money that I have and saving it to purchase a thing, it shouldn't be like a thing off of my makeup wish list, because like how much more makeup do I really need? Like, I get that a lot of women need to wear makeup at the workplace, but I have more than enough makeup for that. I have more than enough makeup for that and then some. I have more than enough makeup to have fun with makeup, to be able to create like a huge range and variety of looks. I have more than enough. And so when it comes to like setting aside money and saving up for things, like I need to stop saving up for makeup and start thinking about like the very other real things that I need in my life that I have refused to think were worth spending any money on, because I have always prioritized them below makeup, even though they are much more integral to my like survival and thriving than makeup. Okay, now that I've like gotten on my moral high horse, let me come crashing right the F back down, because I don't want any of y'all to sit here and think for even like 1 second, even one. Even as my like rational brain is telling me, Prachi, you have so much makeup, you already have an amount that you're way overwhelmed by, that you don't really know a lot of stuff about, and you can't be thinking about spending money on makeup because you have like a very real cost that you are going to need to invest money in very, very soon. Makeup is not a high priority expense in your life anymore. Even though my rational brain is telling me all of that, I still want to buy shit. In fact, one of the videos that I'm slated to do this October, like it's scheduled in my content calendar to deliver to all of you guys, is kind of an anti-haul. A video discussing like 2019 releases that are on my wish list for me to buy, releases that were on my wish list but which no longer are on my wish list, and releases that I think are just like a hard pass, where I'm like, I am not interested, this doesn't even pique my interest, in fact, this might be garbage, like what's going on here? Because that is how much my brain still wants, right? That is how much the hunger for beautiful, pretty things is still there. One of the big things that I've sort of come to realize over August and September, and I touched on this briefly in my March check-in, which I'm going to link up in the cards, but in August and September, my knowledge about it has strengthened and has actually become backed by science. And it's this idea that the hunger for buying things, for shopping, it's never really going to go away. In fact, any sort of like bad habit or behavior or addiction or vice or whatever, it exists in your brain as like a set of neural pathways. And every single time you engage in that behavior, you strengthen the neural pathway. The thing is, that neural pathway, once you've laid it down, it never really goes away. At least what I've been reading so far, like I've been reading a couple books like my therapist recommended to me around rewiring your brain and all of that kind of stuff. And the research suggests that once you lay down that track exists. You can walk down it really at any point in time. However, it doesn't mean you're doomed to walk down that pathway every single time. And optimistically, that also means that if you lay down the tracks for a good habit, that track also never goes away. So, in the context of shopping, right? Every single time I feel like shit about my life and then I go out and buy a thing, I'm reinforcing the neural pathway in my brain of this particular bad behavior, shopping for makeup when I feel bad. And now that I'm on my no-buy year, I'm not allowing myself to walk down that road anymore. And instead, what I've been doing is creating a new road. And that new road is, I feel bad about myself, but I'm not going to go buy makeup. And in fact, I'm gonna do something else. Maybe I'm gonna go for a run, maybe I'm gonna call my mom to talk to her, maybe I'm going to read, maybe I'm going to cook, maybe I'm gonna go for a shower, maybe I'm gonna watch one of Hannah Louise Poston's videos to just like keep my chin up. One of like her check-ins maybe from from her no-buy year last year. Instead of going down that like bad pathway of actually going out and buying a thing to make myself feel better, I engage in another behavior, which is telling myself no, closing the tab, and then going and doing something else. And every time I do that, I lay down a pathway, and then I strengthen that pathway, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger, while this other pathway, the one of you feel like garbage, why don't you go buy a thing to make yourself feel better, it starts becoming like a set of train tracks that aren't in use. The tracks start rusting over, ivy starts growing along the tracks. The train tracks are still there. The urge is still there. The possibility of going down that road is still there, but I choose not to take that road. And I let it go further and further into disuse. I let the tracks rust over even more with time. I choose to strengthen and build the other neural pathways until eventually this like old pathway here is so choked over by rust and ivy that it's difficult to go down that path at all. It's not impossible, the pathway's still there, but you've made it much harder for yourself to go do that thing instead of all of these other behaviors that you've built for yourself as a response to like stress or feeling bad about yourself or whatever is like my personal trigger for shopping or any sort of other bad habit, so to speak. And the knowledge that this is actually how your brain works has been such an overwhelming relief to me, because what it does is it stops me from punishing myself for still wanting to buy stuff. Because that urge to buy stuff, that's that train track that still exists. I'm not wrong or bad or somehow failing in my no-buy for still feeling the impulse to buy a thing. That hunger is gonna be there with me probably for a really, really long time. But like all of the people before me who have broken bad habits, because hello, so many people have broken really bad habits. And I don't just mean in terms of shopping. Think of all the people you know who've like quit hard drugs, quit drinking, quit smoking. All of these people who had like a set of very bad habits that they then replaced with better, healthier habits. Every single last one of them who has successfully changed their mindset, their brains too contain that rusted old train track. The urge for them to fall back into that old pattern of behavior, they had that too. That is a normal, expected part of recovery. Changing your habits, whether it's something as like simple, so to speak, as like buying less makeup, to something much more major like quitting like an addictive substance like alcohol, cigarettes, drugs. The thirst for alcohol, the urge for a cigarette, the need to feel high, she doesn't go away. And so instead of wasting time beating myself up for that urge still being there, I should instead spend my energy on like constructing those other pathways and figuring out how to better manage that urge. Because for such a long time in my life, I have wasted all of my time and energy like beating myself up for even still feeling the urge to shop. And I'm just like not doing that anymore. I still want to buy shit. Those Cover FX blushes, come at me, bro. Like, I love them so much. I think about them every single day. But every single day when I think about them and I feel the urge to buy them and then I tell myself, no, we're not gonna buy that today, I know that I am strengthening the pathway to a good, productive, and better habit. Man, I'm getting sweaty because it's just like me in this like closed bathroom. It's heating up, y'all. But I just want to like impress upon you guys that I am totally like not over shopping. The urge hasn't died. I still want a lot of makeup. I still think about buying makeup all the time, especially on days when I feel really bad. I don't feel like I'm living the way I want to. I don't feel like I'm achieving the life and future that I want for myself. Let me see if I can go buy something to give that to me. Like, that's still there, and that's okay. Because the important thing is that prior to my no-buy year, that voice that was like, you need to buy something to feel better, you need to buy something to achieve the future that you want, you need to buy something to be the person who you want to be, because without that thing, it's impossible for you to achieve it. That voice used to be the only voice in my head. And actually, no, it wasn't the only voice, but it was definitely the loudest voice. It was the one that took up the most space in my brain. It was the one who I listened to the absolute most. You know that iconic scene in the very first Harry Potter book and movie of like Dudley Dursley losing his goddamn mind because it's his birthday and he only received 36 presents and he received 37 last year and he wants a present, like he wants one now, he deserves it, he needs it, and he's just like losing his mind on his 11th birthday? That like kid throwing an absolute tantrum, wanting a bunch of stuff. I let that voice run my life. I let it take center stage with like its temper tantrum. And somewhere like adjacent to that temper tantrum, like somewhere way in the back, there was like a meek, rational young woman like trying to raise her hand and be like, sir, like ma'am, like maybe you don't like need that plush, like maybe you shouldn't buy that lipstick because that's not going to be the thing that like gets you into law school. And did Dudley Dursley having a tantrum want to listen to that like meek, rational young woman? No, Dudley Dursley shut her ass down every single time. I gave in almost every single time to the Dudley Dursley pathway of life. And being on the no-buy for 8 years now means that Dudley Dursley ain't the loudest bitch in my head. The meek, young, rational woman who's like, maybe that's not the best. Like, she's no longer meek. I have strengthened up her voice so that when, like, Dudley Dursley rears his ugly, stupid head to try and convince me to buy stuff, rational young woman planning for the future, let's call her Hermione Granger, she can hold her own against Dudley Dursley. Instead of, like, meekly raising her hand and trying to interject when I really want, like, a Pat McGrath lip gloss, the Hermione Granger voice in my head is like, Prachi, you greasy-faced, glossy-ass clown. You know you don't need another lip gloss. You know you don't need another highlighter. How big you think your lips are, Prachi, that you think you need another gloss right now? And another highlight? Like, really? You trying to look like Severus Snape here? You want that much grease and gloss on your face? Go to the library, read a book or something, girl. Like, that'll help you more to becoming an actual lawyer than Miss Pat McGrath ever will. Oh my god, I'm so melodramatic. Anyway, I hope I've illustrated what I'm trying to say. If you're somehow on a no-buy like me and you're like guilt-tripping yourself for still feeling like you want to go buy stuff, don't do that. It's just a waste of your mental energy. It's emotionally very, very draining. Understand that wanting to buy the thing, it's probably always going to be there. At the very least, it's going to be there for a very long time. And that it's been that way for every single person in the history of humanity before you who has ever tried to change their habits and succeeded. It's not a sign of failure, and it's not a sign of a lack of growth. Every single time the voice in your head wants a thing and you're able to look at it and be like, no, we're not getting that thing, you strengthen your ability to do it in the future. And that's progress. I have talked for long enough, and this bathroom is growing increasingly humid to the point where the front part of my hair is beginning to curl, even though I used a flat iron on it like not even, an hour ago. Which means it's pretty much time for me to wrap up this video. Since you stuck it out with me all the way to the very end, I'm gonna tell you that I'm actually planning on growing my hair out. And I know some of you might be like super shocked by that because since I've started this channel back in February, I've always had short hair, but the reality is my hair's only really been short since September 2018. And since you have stuck it out with me all the way to the end of this video, editing me is gonna give you a treat and show you some pictures of long hair Prachi pre-September 2018, so that y'all can see what I used to look like and what I'm maybe gonna try and look like again now that I'm thinking of starting to grow my hair out. So thanks for having watched this far, hope you enjoyed those photos, and as always, I hope you have a great upcoming week. And even if the rest of your week ends up becoming messy or imperfect, I hope that you're still able to create and experience some truly beautiful moments. Bye!